My name is Augusto. I'm going to talk to you guys about Raiden. I'm not going to go in a deep dive about the protocol. I'm just going to make a quick review about the protocol and talk generally about the status of the project. Okay? So just a little introduction about me. I'm Augusto Hack. I have been working with the Raiden project for quite a while, 2.5 years pretty much. That's a photo of me. And so this is the agenda for the presentation. So I'm going to make a quick review about Raiden. Say what problem we are trying to fix, how does the Raiden project fit in the big picture in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about what is the current status of the project, so give a good update about the project for you guys. And I want to make a demo, but my laptop didn't work, so let's see, I'm going to try to bring another laptop to show a demo for you. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to show a video of the project working. Okay? And at the end, I'm just going to give an update of our future plans for the project. So first things first, what is Raiden? Raiden is a network of payment channels, right? So we have a construct on the blockchain where we lock some tokens, and we can use these tokens to make payments without interacting with the blockchain, okay? And the really important thing about Raiden is that it's not like a silver bullet. We are building a payment technology. We are not building state channels, right? So you cannot just use Raiden to scale everything. You can use Raiden to scale payments without interacting with the blockchain. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. If you're writing an application that actually is a dApp that needs to interact with the blockchain, Raiden may not be the best solution. It depends on how often, if you can batch these interactions, or if we can actually provide some metadata that you can use with your dApp and reduce the number of transactions that you send to the blockchain. But Raiden itself is not a solution for all of these problems. Oh, I'm sorry, better? Okay. Yeah, so starting with the basics. Raiden is built up on the concept of payment channels. So payment channels are built in two parts. We have the blockchain, which is represented in the top of the figure. What I want you to show in this figure is that the blockchain is used to actually hold some tokens in escrow in a smart contract that we call a token network. Okay? So what happens is pretty much that all channels in Raiden, have two parties, A and B, and these parties can make deposits for the channel on-chain. And once we have these deposits, we can use them to make payments off-chain. Okay? This is the basic build block, the blockchain part, and the off-chain part, which is what the Raiden client manages, right? So once we see the deposit, the escrow in the blockchain, we can use it off-chain. And on top of this concept, the channel, we can make a network of channels. And we have a concept of hash time block, really similar to the Lightning Network concept, which we use to make payments that go through multiple hops, through multiple payment channels. And in this way, we can just make sure that we can make a payment to most of the nodes in the network without having to have a direct connection to all of them. Okay? So that's the quick overview. Raiden network is built on payment channels, and we use payment channels to make a payment network. And why is that good? Why is that good for the Ethereum ecosystem, and what is the problem that we're trying to fix? So we think that payments are like a huge use case of the blockchain. And if you have to interact with the blockchain every time when you want to make a payment, it's not necessarily the most efficient way of doing things. And Raiden allows you to make payments without interacting to the blockchain. So that reduces the number of transactions that you need to send to the blockchain. And it also, over time, over like 5 first transactions, it makes things cheaper because you don't need to pay the gas costs. Right, you pay the gas cost for opening a channel, and once the gas cost of that transaction is actually used, you can make the payments off-chain without paying for the miners. Okay, so that's pretty much what Raiden is good for. We're good for making payments, and specifically it's really good for making micropayments, because micropayments, if you're like paying ½ cent, it doesn't really make sense to send a transaction, because the transaction itself can be more expensive than ½ cent, right? So you don't want to pay in fees more than what you want to pay for whatever goods you get. And that's pretty much the biggest use case that Raiden tackles, and that's why we think it's a good use case for actually making mass adoption, making things cheaper, more scalable, faster. Okay, so that's the idea. Quick overview. If you guys have questions, just reach them out afterwards. I can talk extensively about the protocol. But what is the current status? Because everyone wants to use it, right? Hopefully everyone wants to use it. So we started a faster release cycle like 2 months ago. It started in July with the Ecolo release. And after that, we have like Ecolo was 5 months of really intensive changes to the core of the node, at the core of the off-chain client, where we made some really strong guarantees about consistency of the data and not losing data that is really important to prove your balance off-chain. Okay? And since July, we have pretty much made a release every week as we can, fixing bugs and adding features. And sometimes we don't make every release, but we make like a release every week, but we make every 2 weeks. And right now we are working towards finishing a milestone that we call Red Eyes. And the Red Eyes release goal is to go to the mainnet. Because right now we are just doing testnet releases to the Robster network. And here you guys can see how the development has just skyrocketed in the last few months, especially here in July, because we're really trying hard to do some bug fixes and improving the features that we have so that we can go to the mainnet. And since then, since Ecolo, we have made quite a few releases. Right now we are in the release 14 bis. That's available to download. You can just go to the GitHub page and make a download of the release. We have binaries, executable binaries that you can use just to try it out, the project. Should be quite trivial to use it. Doesn't work on Windows, but it works on Macs and Linux. Yeah, and our goal is to just release some new testnets and then go to the mainnet with Red Eyes. Okay, so what is the current status? What can the client do? So right now, Raiden can manage the channels. So the life cycle that I was talking a little bit before with the blockchain, opening a channel, closing a channel. We have a dispute resolution that happens on-chain. That's what is crucial for the security of the system. That's done, that's implemented. We also have some hot paths for optimization where we reduce the number of transactions that you need to actually withdraw money from the smart contract. We have implemented single and multi-hop transfers that relies on the hash time locks that I was talking before. So the payment network is actually available, it's working. And we also have some features for automatically joining the token network, so you don't need to actually know how you're gonna join a token network. You just press a button and then channels are open for you and managed for you. And we also have a REST API, because our goal is actually to build Raiden so that people can build applications on top of Raiden. Our goal is not to be like the people that are going to build Raiden and only one application that's going to use it. So we want to provide REST APIs so that people can build their own dApps that make payments using the Raiden network. And the way that would work is through the REST API that we have. Is like standard HTTP REST API. Okay, and this point is really important. We have right now implemented recoverability under faults. So if you're running your Raiden node and anything goes wrong with your network, with your power grid, anything turns off the queues process that you have Raiden executing on, we guarantee that you're not going to lose data, at least as long as we can rely on the hard drive and the operating system to have like strict guarantees. But we made the best that we could in engineering effort to make sure that data that's required to prove your balance is not lost. Okay, that was like the biggest last year of work on the recoverability of the Raiden node. And right now we sort of dropped the UDP transport, which is really, really fast, but it's not really reliable because of connections, net translation problems. And we moved to a matrix protocol, a matrix as a transport for the Raiden node, so that people can actually use Raiden without worrying about net translation. And also it makes possible to use Raiden with phones that have a really, really hard time with net translation. So we just use standard HTTP for communication. And we also have a new web UI, which is way better than the previous one. This one actually looks nice. And we are working on a Raiden Explorer that's just a visualization for the Raiden network that we don't have available yet, but that's something that we're going to make it available in the future. So these were the status of the Raiden client, what we have that's necessary for the Raiden node to work off-chain without the necessary interaction with the blockchain. And we also have the backing up of the smart contracts on-chain, right? So right now in the smart contracts, we have all the features that we want for the red eyes implemented. And these are one token network. So previously in the proof of concept, we had one smart contract per channel, and that made the cost of actually opening channels really, really high. Because when you deploy a new smart contract on the Ethereum blockchain, you pay a really high cost. Right now, we're just using one smart contract that manages multiple channels. So opening new channels is actually quite way cheaper, like 40% cheaper than it was before. We also added some features, specifically withdraw. That means you can take tokens out of channels without closing it. So you can make new deposits and take money out of it without necessarily having to close, so you can see reuse your channels if you, for some reason, need to take it out. We also have an optimization that we call co-op settle. So previously, you had to send at least 4 transactions to do a dispute resolution on chain and close a channel. Right now, you can just have an agreement off chain, send 1 transaction, and the balances are resolved off chain, and then the channel is completely closed without requiring more interactions with the blockchain. Okay, so these are 2 screenshots of the updated web UI. Just really simple stuff, but it looks nice, it works. You can try it out if you make the download of the release from the GitHub page. And I think right now I should have a demo. Oh, the next 2 slides. So if you guys want to use it, what you can do is just use our GitHub page. Our software is actually open source, so you can just go to github.com, Raiden Network, Raiden, and on the releases webpage, you can make a download of whichever release you want. So after you have the Raiden client, you just need to turn on the web UI. We have a button where you press join a network, you say how many tokens you actually want to put in that token network, and then Raiden is going to use these tokens to manage connections for you. Once you have channels open, you can use the network, make payments. And if anything happens and you need to have secured, and you need to secure your tokens on-chain, the client is going to take account of that for you automatically. So the client is actually watching the blockchain and reacting to the events that happen on the blockchain. Okay, so now it's the demo time. My computer is there. Sadly, it's not working with the HDMI, so I'm just going to show you guys a video. Let's see how it's going to work with the internet. Okay, so here we have 2 nodes in the left and the right, and throughout the demo, it's going to show a transaction from one of the nodes to another. This is just the home page. This is the visualization of the tokens. So the way Raiden works is that we have a token network per token. That means you make 1 payment inside the token network, and when you need to actually make 1 payment from 1 token to another, you need to rely on some sort of exchange, right? We don't have the exchange actually setting. We only make payments inside one of the token networks. And this is like just a listing in the right of all the tokens that are available for that smart contract. And there is a button that's called join, and a button that's called leave, and a button that's called pay that you can just use to manage connections. So you just join the network. If you want to, you can leave or you can pay. And you can obviously add new tokens to the network. This is in another view. This is the channels, or the channels that are open. You can open new channels if you want. If you don't want to use our management of the channels, you just specify which is the target address and how much tokens you want to use. And once you have channels open and you want to make a payment, you can just press the pay button, which should happen right now. Pay. Yeah, that's just a shortcut that uses the address of the channel as a target. You specify the amount of tokens that you want to use for making the payment. And what's going to happen is that we're going to exchange all the messages, what we call balance proofs. They're going to provide a proof of the latest balance of the nodes off-chain. And up there, I don't know if you guys saw, there was like 2 notifications of the payment completing. yeah, in the green one in the right side is the payment completing, and in the left side is the payment being received. So that's pretty much what we have in UI. It's a really simple showcase of what Raiden can do, and we have two intents with that UI. We want to showcase how people are supposed to use our REST APIs to build applications on top, because that's one application built on top of Raiden. It's just a standard single page website that's communicating with the Raiden node, and it's also a nice utility for people that want to actually make payments with Raiden. So that's for the demo. Sorry for not showing the live thing. It's working, I promise. I can show you guys if you want to with the laptop afterwards. Yeah. So what are the next steps? So this is what we have working. Pretty much all the protocol layers are working. Right now we are only spending time testing and making sure that we don't have any serious bugs in the testnet before we go to the mainnet. So right now we are in the red eyes. This is our current milestone that we're working on. We have here the 4 biggest features that are implemented in the left, and we are testing them. So right now, during red eyes, we are testing, make sure that the software is safe, so that we can go to the mainnet. And at the end of red eyes, we're going to have our first mainnet release. Should happen quite soon. And we are also starting external audits. We have done a few internal audits of the smart contracts, but the goal of the external audits is to be delayed for the Ithaca release. So that's going to be like the biggest goal of the Ithaca release, is like having some external people that look at our code and say, okay, it's secure, instead of just relying on our own word. Yeah. So what else are we going to do after red eyes? We really need to implement a thing that we call a monitoring service. This is called a tower in the Lightning Network. So right now, you cannot turn off your Raiden node unless you close the channels, because otherwise you're trusting your partner to provide the data that you require on your behalf, and we don't have trust in the system. So you need to have someone else that's actually monitoring your channels for you. And that's one of the biggest things that we need to implement. We also have to improve how things work on the routing, on the routing part of the system. We call that the routing problem. And the availability problem is the monitoring service, and also the audit that I mentioned before. So yeah, so with the monitoring services and the improve pathfinding service, that's what we call that. That's our strategy for tackling the routing problem. We really want to improve the usability of Raiden, because then you can close the Raiden node and do whatever else. So you just rely on the monitoring service to manage your channels. So just a quick review of what is the availability problem. The thing is, if someone closes the channel that you're participant in, you need to provide your half of the proof of the balances, and if you don't, you lose money. So you need to be online, you need to watch for the blockchain, and you need to provide the data. The other option would be to have a protocol that requires consensus. We don't want to do that because that would be too slow, and the way that we have implemented the protocol allows partial updates, so we always need 2 updates of the state, and we don't trust our partner, so we require a third party to actually do the update of the state on our behalf. So that's the availability problem. The routing problem is a optimization problem, really. Routing works right now, but it's suboptimal. We just use local information to decide which is the next hop that we're going to use for making a payment. And that's necessarily not the best thing, because the next hop that I see may be a really good one from my perspective, but when I send the payment to him, he doesn't have any good routes forward, right? So we need to have either a strategy of adding structure to the network, or a strategy of having a global view of the state. And at first, we're going to go to a strategy that tries to have a global view. That's actually not necessarily possible, but we are going to implement something that's eventually consistent, so we can try to optimize the routing problem. Like, just try to find a route that has a higher likelihood of being cheaper and probably faster of completing the payment. Because right now we rely on some things that we call refunds, so we have like backtracking when a payment's going through. I can talk about that afterwards. Okay, so after Ithaca, what do we want to do? We want to implement a light client. So right now, we have a Raiden client that it's implemented in Python, and we assume that people are just going to run on their computer, right? But that doesn't allow people actually use the client in a mobile phone. And that's pretty much because we assume that all nodes in the network do mediation. That doesn't work with mobile phones because they can go online and offline at any moment. So we have availability problems in that sense. And to improve things, we want to implement at least decide what are the restrictions that we're going to have in the protocol layer so that we can have a mobile application that actually can use a Raiden protocol and be safe. We also want to have a look at a Raiden wallet idea. So that would pretty much be a wallet for an Android or iPhone that actually uses the Light Client protocol to make payments using the Raiden network, which is something that's really, really cool, and hopefully get some mass adoption out of this, right? So just as a recap, we are doing really incremental changes, weekly releases, bi-weekly releases, so that we can provide bug fixes as fast as it's possible for us. And it has been working quite greatly, to be honest. Really good from the developer perspective, and I think also it's really good from the user perspective. We also have, I didn't mention that at all. I said that we have done a few internal audits, so we have also spent quite some time improving our specs. So if anyone wants to implement a different client that uses the same protocol, we have the specs that are, right now they're more understandable, and we have the guarantees of the protocol and the requirements better laid out. That should also be quite good for external audits. And right now we are working pretty much full speed for finishing Red Eyes so that we can go to the mainnet. Yeah. So here's a QR code if you want to take a picture. And if you want to test it out, just go to the releases in the GitHub. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.